And well, with Phoenix at the best probably being a top 9 or top 10 team, that might make them rethink their direction and the guys in their current team too. Yes, obviously they traded Kevin Durant, got Jalen Green as part of that trade, kind of are in a weird spot right now. Not being in a spot of obvious contention, I wouldn't call them a true contender, but also not being bad enough to have a top 5 or top 10 draft pick, aka they're right in the middle and that's not where you want to be. So when it comes down to it at the trade deadline, do they try and get better from being a middling team that might make the play-in tournament, or do they kind of sell their team and maybe try to get a higher draft pick? Well, if they do go the latter route, then they definitely have a bunch of veterans that could be good options on the trade market. Guys like Nick Richards, Royce O'Neal, Grayson Allen, and the fan favorite for many Laker fans that may want him through a trade, Dillon Brooks, who although definitely has a history with their team and with LeBron James in particular, having a few tense matchups with them, dating back to the 2023 NBA playoffs in the first round, the Lakers when they faced the Grizzlies back then. Dillon Brooks talking a lot, one of his specialties in the court, being very physical with LeBron, even dating back to their 2021 matchups, being a bit of an annoyance and even a dirty player at times too. It might be a bit awkward, but I think they would be able to overcome it, and if they could, and if they would, he would probably be a pretty good teammate for LeBron and definitely a good option for their team too. Like I said, one of their current needs is a 3&D wing, and that's exactly what Dillon Brooks is. Last season, shooting a career-high 39.7% from the three-point line, also per usual playing great defense and can defend multiple positions on the court, able to defend point guards, shooting guards, small forwards, even power forwards. That's a multi-positional defender and a guy that definitely takes pride on that end of the court too. So with that in mind here, could he be an option and would he be a good option? In my opinion, yes, for the right price he definitely would be, but it all comes down to that price and obviously where the Suns are at that point. I don't think they'd currently be willing to trade him, or at least not for a good price. It will come down to them being an average or below average team around the trade deadline, maybe even before that point. Much like last year, if it comes down to it and the Lakers find a trade in December, like they did last year with Dorian Finney-Smith, then they definitely will make one if they feel the need to. But again, it does come down to Phoenix here. The sooner they realize they're not a great team and not the point of contention, that's when they'll make their veteran guys available for trade, which might be the case for a guy like Dillon Brooks, or maybe a guy like Grayson Allen and or Royce O'Neal. And well, beginning with Dillon Brooks, like I said, it would be a bit awkward right away. Trying to make the relationship work with him and LeBron, it might take a week or two, but I think once they become teammates that would quickly be subsided and that they would be fine together, and that Dillon Brooks would definitely fill a much needed role for their team too. That being a 3&D wing, and not to mention a big physical 3&D wing, Dillon Brooks being roughly a 6'6" or a 6'7", is a good defender, is a multi-positional defender like I said, can defend 1 through 3 and sometimes 1 through 4 on the court, has become a very good 3-point shooting option, now a 35.5% career 3-point shooter, also a 40% corner 3-point shooter. Like I said, last season shooting nearly 40% from the 3-point line, and now coming to Phoenix where he likely won't be as valued, won't be as productive I doubt offensively. With their team and not really having the makeup of a true contender, he might not have a fit on their team, definitely not in the long term in my opinion, and that could lead to him being a viable option for the trade market. So with that being said, what would it take to trade for him? Well, purely talking about in regard to making the trade work financially, Dillon Brooks does have a salary of $21.1 million next season, and with the Lakers being very close to the first apron and given that does remain the same around the trade deadline, then they'd have to get pretty close to that salary. Meaning we'd have to trade something like Maxi Kleber and Gabe Vincent simply to make the money work, which I'm not sure the Suns would really want, but then again, if they're trying to get worse, not better, and not take back any long-term money while doing it, then they might have some interest in that kind of offer. Obviously, with them, we'd have to offer a draft pick. For Dillon Brooks, they probably would take a first-round draft pick. Their 2031 first-round draft pick, probably lightly protected. I doubt they could get away with multiple future first-round draft pick swaps, maybe 2 or 3 of them with a second-round draft pick. Ideally, that'd be great, but I kind of doubt it. Probably would take a first-round draft pick, and given that we're only giving up Kleber and Vincent here, it might be worth it. Though if Phoenix wouldn't want that trade and actually wants a decent player that could actually grow with their team, maybe a guy like Dalton Knecht for example, then we could expand the trade and maybe make it a little bit more interesting. Still going after Dillon Brooks, but then with him offering a guy like Dalton connect with Cleveland Vincent for Dillon Brooks and Nick Richards, a guy the Lakers have previously been linked to and even dating back to earlier this summer, so maybe that might be an option for them, with Phoenix having drafted Kaman Maluak, also trading for Mark Williams, not really having a spot for Nick Richards, and again, if they're not really great and not showing to be a contender, even a real threat for the play-in tournament, then they might look to trade Dillon Brooks with them. So at that point, maybe a trade of Maxi Kleber, Gabe Vincent, Dalton Connect, and maybe with Connect included here, we won't have to give up our final tradable first-round draft pick. I still think they would, and that the Suns would probably demand it, but if they're lucky, maybe 2 or 3 future first-round draft pick swaps with their final tradable second-round draft pick. Maybe that would be enough, maybe it wouldn't, but that's simply the idea for making the trade work here, both from a financial standpoint and a compensation standpoint, probably around what it would take and probably what the Phoenix Suns would want in return for Dillon Brooks and maybe Nick Richards with them. But I think that'll pretty much do it for this one, and if you enjoyed the video, then I would greatly appreciate it if you dropped a like, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell to never miss out when I upload a video. But as always, thank you for watching and have a great day or night.